Welcome to Earplay Escape. You can now support me by joining my Patreon account and also gaining access to the full audiobooks. The link is on the description below. Thank you so much for your support. Football, £2 billion to own Manchester United. Like, share and subscribe. Episode 51. Boom. In Laporta's VIP room, champagne has been opened in advance. In their opinion, the outcome of this game seems to be preordained. Dear ladies and gentlemen, it is a great honor to witness the fall of the Manchester United dynasty. Cheers. Across the ocean. At this time, Zhang Xiaohan, who was watching TV, couldn't help but cover his mouth and didn't dare to watch it anymore. She now seems to be able to feel what kind of mood Tan Wenla will be at this time. Zhang Xiaohan held the mobile phone in her hand. She knew that she must call as soon as the game was over. She now regretted a little why she was not by his side on such a day. He must be very sad now, right? Zhang Xiaohan squatted in front of the TV, hoping that the live broadcast would give Tan Wenla a shot, even if it was across the TV screen. Let himself touch him. As long as the game is not over, as long as that Hungarian has not sounded the whistle. Never give up, never stop. You don't have a choice now. If you want to fight on top of Europe, drop all your baggage and attack. I don't want the Barcelona game to laugh at me and say that Manchester United is a stepping stone to someone else's throne. Tan Wenla stood on the sidelines at this time, shouting at the players on the field. Even though he was shouting that, the broadcast footage was never given to him. However, the Manchester United players looked at him. Ronaldo took the lead in standing up and said to his teammates, "There are 10 minutes left in the game. We haven't lost yet. We haven't lost." Ferdinand also shouted loudly at this time, "Hey, take out some spirit. Even if we can't win, we should peel a layer of skin for these people on the other side." The game continued, and although there were still 10 minutes to go and the regular game time was about to end, the Barca fans at the scene seemed to have begun to celebrate in advance. On the pitch, David Beckham played increasingly incarcerated. He stood in his place, afraid that he was making a mistake. After Messi was given the opportunity to attack, he continued to look for breakthrough opportunities from the left wing, that is, the side of Beckham's defense. This time, David Beckham tried his best and made a clean sliding tackle to stop the ball from under Messi's feet, without even getting a foul. He then quickly passed the ball to Modric. Modric quickly turned and split the ball at the feet of Marcelo on the other side. Marcelo pushed forward with the ball and, after halftime, handed the ball to Cristiano Ronaldo. After Messi moved to the other side, Marcelo seemed to have a lot less mental burden, and his assists seemed to be more forward. After Cristiano Ronaldo, Marcelo started directly to start accelerating forward. Ronaldo felt Marcelo's positive forward insertion, and after pedaling the bicycle continuously, he shoved the ball straight to Marcelo, who inserted forward. Then, Ronaldo ran towards Barca's penalty area, and his run pulled two Barca defenders. Marcelo hit Barca's penalty area near the bottom line, directly past a high ball, and the ball accurately found Rooney hidden in the back point. Rooney jumped high and slammed a head hammer open the door of the Barca team. Manchester United finally pulled a goal back in the 88th minute. This goal has boosted the morale of Manchester United's players. Ferguson also seemed to see a glimmer of hope at this time, and once again rushed out of the dugout. He seemed to see the problem, and he seemed to see a turnaround on his side. Marcelo's just assist and cooperation with Cristiano Ronaldo is simply perfect. Ferguson quickly shouted to Marcelo, "Marcelo, keep going." Park Ji-sung, stare at Henry. On the other hand, Guardiola also seemed to feel a slight crisis, and hurriedly made substitutions on the sidelines. He was ready to replace Henry with Keita, but in order to spend some time with this substitution, Guardiola deliberately waited for his own kickoff before he applied for a substitution with the fourth official. The game came to the 90th minute and there was no dead ball in the game. However, Marcelo on the left wing is like a wild dog, constantly frantically tearing at Barcelona's back line. Underneath, knockback, cross, the fire used by Marcelo. Barcelona's right back, Cáceres, was also sweating at this time, and was burned by the work of Marcelo and Cristiano Ronaldo. If it weren't for the assistance of Busquets and Yaya Touré, Cáceres would have been spoiled by these two. There were 4 minutes of stoppage time, and the time was passing minute by minute. Barcelona are getting closer and closer to their trophy. At this time, Messi had even retreated to the back to help defend. Manchester United, on the other hand, still controls the ball and seems to be looking for a breakthrough. Modric had the ball up front, and the Barca players were already fully back in the box. He handed the football to Marcelo, who was still ready to seek a cross from the bottom after receiving the ball. However, Cáceres followed closely and did not give him a chance to cross with his feet. Marcelo is helpless. He knows that he cannot easily lose the ball now. Otherwise, Manchester United's time will be worn out little by little. In the end, Marcelo chose to pass the ball back to Carrick's feet. Michael Carrick transferred the ball to the right and Di Maria returned the ball to David Beckham, after which Di Maria turned and started. David Beckham sent in a precise pass that was firmly back at Di Maria's feet. Di Maria took the ball and Barca's left back Silvinho quickly followed. Di Maria first made a feint to break outward, and then directly began to cut inward to make a breakthrough. After Di Maria passed Silvinho, Puyol rushed forward to block the angle from which Di Maria could shoot. Di Maria was helpless, and then continued to cut inward. At this time, Busquets, who might as well come over, stepped forward to block, hesitated a little fiercely, and directly put Di Maria not far from the front of the penalty area. The referee on duty decisively blew the whistle in his mouth. Manchester United had a spotted free kick opportunity in the 92nd minute of the game. Di Maria sat on the ground and pulled her socks, then stood up and handed the ball into Ronaldo's hands. Ronaldo placed the ball on the penalty spot, and then an arm slapped on Ronaldo's back. Ronaldo looked back. At this time, the person standing next to him was none other than David Beckham. Episode 52. Ronaldo looked at David Beckham and asked, "David, do you want a penalty?" Beckham said, "If I could, I would like to take the penalty this ball. For you and me, the pressure is too great." After Ronaldo and David Beckham looked at each other for a few seconds, the corners of Ronaldo's mouth rose slightly. "The opportunity to be a hero, for me, in the future, more, today, this opportunity to be a hero, I will hand it over to you. Take it easy, believe in your footwork, you are still the David in everyone's mind." Saying that, Ronaldo took the initiative to give up the serve. David Beckham hugged Ronaldo. Then, Ronaldo walked away. In the commentary room of Sky Sports, it has begun to shout wildly. "Even my Ka, is David going to take this free kick? Oh my god, this position reminds me of Wembley 7 years ago. 7 years of waiting, will the miracle happen again? He seems to have an indissoluble bond with 7. Wow, Manchester United's new No 7, handed over the final free kick to the legend No 7. This scene, why do I feel like crying? At this time, the British fans of the Stadio Olimpico in Rome, and even the fans who originally supported Barca, as long as they had loved the handsome young man in their hearts, had stood up to cheer for him. In the cheers of the audience, Tan Winla looked at Beckham with some unbearable eyes. The result of today's game is no longer something he can judge by referring to history. At this point in time, the free kick was United's last chance. Will the full moon scimitar that once saved England appear again? Ferguson stopped chewing gum, he just forced his mouth and silently began to pray for David Beckham. Tan Winla knelt there, just pulling his hair, wanting to look but not daring to look. Almost all the players on the bench stood up, staring at the focus of the field. Kaka, Zhang Xiaohan, Kevin, and others who watched on TV all prayed silently with their hands folded. Watching David Beckham start to run, it is still his iconic, extremely stretching running action, without the slightest delay. The moment David Beckham's right foot touched the ball, the beautiful arc that people knew was streaked through the midair of Rome. With Puyol and other stars lining up a wall of people, watching the ball pass over their heads, they can only look back at the ball and sigh. Raúl Valdez, who already has a legendary goalkeeper buff, and he still did not react in the slightest when faced with such a misunderstood curved ball. Watching the ball burrow into the net, Valdez could only vent his anger on the football and kicked it hard. Gogagagagagagagagag. Ball the ball is in the pole. Same location, same arc, David once again magically equalized the score. He's still the boy in our hearts, a boy who used to rely on angry horses. After David Beckham scored the free kick, he ran frantically to the sidelines, not wanting to celebrate with his teammates. Instead, he rushed to Ferguson with tears in his eyes. The old man who once spoiled him like a child. An old man and a young man hugged each other, crying with joy. Everyone saw the tears left in the corners of David's eyes. I also saw Ferguson's tears of excitement. Handsome appearance, beautiful arc, the wife of a star, a proud honor, memories of youth, dreamy legends, endless injuries, blame of the world, the salvation of the self, the providence of God. This is David Beckham, a player who is more glamorous than any of his contemporaries. One carries more players than any other superstar of his generation, because he is David Beckham. He was a darling and an outcast, and he was chased and banished. He wins back respect after weightlessness, and he ushers in more respect in respect. He was not gone when he left, his name was David Beckham, a man who always touches the world. Sighing lightly for half a lifetime of smoke and dust, glory fell into chaos, the world was stumbling, and the past was like smoke. Lynn Darkgrass was shocked, and the general led the bow at night. David Beckham walked through Yang stunt at 100 steps and walked alone. Bei Shadow smiled eternally. Defeat the enemy wins the sword without edge. Han blazing to win respect. M is too busy to pamper the voice. The commentators of Sky Sports, looking at the two masters and apprentices hugging each other, couldn't help but shed tears. Oh, this scene is really unbearable, woo. The commentators on the side, while broadcasting live, shouted, "You can not like football, but you can't not like it, this man named David Beckham." Huaxia broadcast commentator Zhang Jun called out, "Oh my god, a miracle has really happened, can you imagine? This is football, how can you not love football? This is the charm of the world's #1 sport." Messi raised his arms and looked helplessly at the cheering Manchester United. The victory that was about to usher in, just slipped away. Laporta was furious and furious. Fark, David Beckham, Ferguson, this damn old man, why can you forgive this man, why? Mansour on the other side was no longer dancing, and he froze in a daze. Probably, for Mansour, from this moment on, he understood, what is football, right? On the other side of the ocean, Zhang Xiaohan wiped the teardrops from the corners of his eyes, but a smile appeared at the corners of his mouth. She herself didn't even understand what was wrong with herself. While everyone is crying with joy over the goal, David Beckham's name will once again go down in football history. This wonderful arc that cuts through the Roman night sky will remain in the hearts of all fans forever. Episode 53. After United's draw, the two sides will play in extra time. Ferguson is coaching his disciples on how to play in overtime. Ferguson glanced at David next to him and said, "David, in overtime, Take out your tough guy temperament and give a hard punch to those who use you as an embroidered pillow. Beckham nodded to Ferguson repeatedly. Marcelo, in extra time, if you can run, keep rushing. Good coach. Cristiano, Rooney, if you fight back, I hope you two can help your teammates cause them some trouble. Good coach. Ronaldo and Rooney responded. Park Ji-sung, your role in the midfield is very key. You have to intercept Iniesta desperately. You can't let him and Messi make effective cooperation to break through our defense. At his peak, Park Ji-sung was called Park Sam-lung to praise his abundant physical strength and active running, and he was indeed a member of Ferguson's great support. Alright, lads, come on, the champion must belong to Manchester. Come on. Encouraged by Alex Ferguson, the game in extra time is about to begin. Extra time begins, starting with Barcelona kicking off first. Barca's style of play was still dominated by control, and after the equalizer, United once again returned to the strategy of defensive counterattack. Guardiola seems to feel a little helpless about such tactics, and he can only hope that his players can rely on their individual abilities to seek breakthroughs. Messi was still attacking on the left after coming up in extra time. At this time, David Beckham, who scored the decisive goal, was like an iron slag and stopped in front of Messi. Whether it is physical confrontation or hard speed, Messi cannot bypass David Beckham's defense. Instead, David Beckham played more and more adaptably, and after a steal, he could even launch a precise long pass to instigate the team's attack. When David Beckham found Rooney in the forward line with a long and precise pass, Rooney swung the ball over Di Maria on the wing. Di Maria held the ball and told the breakthrough, as if an angel had descended, tearing apart the entire Barcelona backline. Di Maria then fired a powerful shot into the near corner of the goal. Valdez made a quick save to block Di Maria's powerful shot. However, the ball did not go out of bounds, but floated high and flew strangely to the back point. Puyol fought hard to chase and tried to destroy the ball. However, Cristiano Ronaldo, who was following behind him, also chased him at the same time. The two jumped high at the same time to fight, but Puyol's height limited him. Ronaldo pressed Puyol and smashed the football into the net. Once again, Manchester United took the lead in this fierce match. Messi, Iniesta, and others looked solemn at this time. They never thought that the game would develop like this. However, the current score is already behind, so they can't think about it. Barca hurried and prepared for the kick-off, and they were ready to fight back with all their might. The collective members of the Manchester United squad have worked together to build a solid defensive line. Under the constant artillery fire of Barca, Manchester United has resisted the fierce attack of Barcelona again and again. Messi has suffered a lot from tough guy David Beckham. Messi has done his best, Eto'o and Henry in the forward line. This game seems to become invisible. All of Barca's attacks are initiated by Messi and Andres Iniesta, and Xavi is constantly scheduling, looking for gaps and opportunities for them. However, Manchester United did not leave them a chance. At this time, Ferguson even made an even more desperate substitution. Ferguson replaced Rooney with Vidic. Look at Ferguson's posture. He is going to stick to this point. Manchester United huddled their backline, leaving only Cristiano Ronaldo and Di Maria as two counter-attacking points in the front. However, Manchester United's three central defenders are standing in the middle of it. All of them are more than 190 centimeters tall, which makes Guardiola desperate. Crosses from the wing are no threat to Manchester United. The penetration of the ribs is even more impossible to penetrate, because there are too many people on the Manchester United back line. However, Messi still does not plan to give up. He is still dribbling the ball to seek a breakthrough. Past Park Ji-sung, past Carrick, but he didn't pass Peak. After Peak broke the ball, he directly kicked the ball to David Beckham. The moment David Beckham got the ball, Di Maria started at full speed. Silvinho quickly followed behind Di Maria, and Beckham had to take the ball forward first. When David Beckham had the ball past halftime, he seemed to see a gap into the Barca penalty area, one that only he could pass through. The football formed a huge parabola on the right side of the stadium, spinning and flying behind Yaya Touré and Puyol, 45-degree cross diagonally. Ferguson must be very familiar with this way of passing, as must the old fans of Manchester United. Once upon a time, his disciples were extremely good at such 45-degree crosses, and Manchester United used to rely heavily on this attacking routine. It's just that I haven't seen it for a long time, and Ferguson himself is even close to Manchester United football, and he can play like this. While Ferguson was still nostalgic for the past, Ronaldo's figure quickly inserted into the hinterland of Barca. Cristiano greeted the incoming ball, without the slightest hesitation, raised his leg and shot angrily. The football slammed into Valdez's goal like a cannonball. Although Valdez touched the football again this time, the trajectory of the ball did not seem to change much, and the football bounced into the gate of Barcelona after concentrating the post. The score came to 5-3 and United led by 2 goals. At this point, Manchester United fans were completely mad. It's a legacy of old and new No 7s, and when David Beckham assisted Cristiano Ronaldo to score the widening goal, his lips once again flashed that charming smile. Ronaldo was still celebrating wildly, and the Portuguese took off his shirt directly, rolled up and threw it out. For this, he was late for a yellow card, but he didn't care at all, because he is supported by all Manchester United fans like a king, because he finally passed on this number 7 shirt that belongs to him. Episode 54. In the following game, Barca's attack looked impatient. At the end of the first half of extra time, the players on both sides entered the break with extremely opposite feelings. 5 minutes later, the second half of extra time began. Sky Sports commentator, "Oh, did Barcelona start playing the tactic of bottom crosses? In this way, they have nothing to do." With a huge lead and less time, the faces of the Manchester United players showed a look of relief, but Ferguson in the coach's dug still has a solemn expression. As long as the game is not over, he does not dare to relax, still shouting for the players on the field, strengthening defense, making up positions, and staring at people. Time passed minute by minute. Ferguson looked at the time on his wrist excitedly, and Tan Winla on the side no longer knew where to go at this time. Ferguson ran out of time to deal with him. However, Tan Winla no longer dared to watch the process of the game at this time. He is completely aware of the movement of the game by hearing 2 minutes, 2 minutes, 2 minutes, a minute and a half, a minute, quick, it's time. At this time, Tan Winla rushed back to the coach's dugout, and before he could shout, Ferguson took the lead in shouting at the fourth official, "Hey hi, it's time." At this time, all the players on the Manchester United bench have gathered on the sidelines, and as soon as the referee whistles, they will rush in and enjoy their victory. Beep, beep, beep. With the on-duty referee blowing 3 sharp whistles, the game was over. All the Manchester United players and coaching staff rushed into the stadium and they celebrated wildly. Because they have created miracles and made history. They became the first team in the history of the Champions League to successfully defend the Champions League. The game is over. Sky Sports broadcast commentator exclaimed, "Manchester United have won this incredible game tenaciously. They have won 5 titles. Sir Alex Ferguson has also succeeded in breaking his new heights. Congratulations to Manchester United. Congratulations to Sir Alex Ferguson. Rejoice for your hard-won victory." In the future, people will talk about the most thrilling game in the history of football and will not only think of the Istanbul Miracle of '05, a game in which Manchester United showed an iron-blooded spirit that made all fans talk about it. Half an hour later, a small podium was set up in the middle of the Stadio Olimpico in Rome. UEFA President Platini United smiled and presented the winning players with medals, and then handed the trophy symbolizing the Champions League to Manchester United captain Rio Ferdinand. In the sky-high flowers and gold leaf, Ferdinand lifted the 4th Champions League trophy in Manchester United's history. The voice of the live announcer at the Stadio Olimpico in Rome is still echoing. Congratulations to Manchester United from England for winning the 2008-2009 UEFA Champions League trophy. When the trophy of the championship was lifted high, the sad Messi looked at the Manchester United players on the stage and had an indescribable taste in his heart. Subsequently, Ronaldo won the Golden Boot of the Champions League, which is undoubtedly announcing to Messi that this year's Ballon d'Or, Ronaldo will continue to win the Ballon d'Or. Unwillingness began to creep into Messi's heart. At this time, Laporta will also be in danger of being laid off. And Mansour also seemed to observe Messi's expression. He smiled and said to himself, "Perhaps, it is a good thing that Barcelona lost this game." At this time, Tan Winla was on the phone with Zhang Xiaohan in the dressing room. After the two of them talked about each other, Tan Winla said, "In a few days, after I finish dealing with the matter at hand, I will go to you." Zhang Xiaohan didn't say anything more, just let out a gentle After hanging up the phone, Zhang Xiaohan looked at the more than 40 unread messages in the mobile phone, and his mood seemed to be very complicated. After returning to China, she realized that things at home seemed far from being as simple as she imagined. The company hid her indefinitely, and her mother publicly denigrated herself through the media. Even his once best friend has to fall into the hole. However, fortunately, she still has Tan Wenla, this little man who can always contain herself. Every time he thought of Tan Wenla's hippie and quirky smile, Zhang Xiaohan would involuntarily show a happy smile. On the other hand, as soon as Tan Wenla hung up the phone, Manchester United's players returned to the dressing room with the Champions League trophy. When they saw Tan Wenla, everyone rushed up and surrounded Tan Wenla. Subsequently, Tan Wenla was raised high, and Tan Wenla gradually integrated into the carnival. After a night of partying, all Manchester United players and staff returned to Manchester after a day of recuperation in Rome. The return bus, as it passed every street in Manchester, was full of fans to greet them in triumph. After that, Manchester United also completed all the fixtures of the season, and the whole team also entered the off-season. All the team members and staff are on holiday. Tan Wenla also flew from Manchester to Los Angeles. He spent a few days in Marvel's studio and watched the filming of Iron Man 2, which was being filmed. I have to say that he still has some admiration for Marvel's film and television production, and he doesn't know how long it will take to have a production team like Marvel in the domestic market. "Kevin, after I return to Huaxia, recruit some talents, can you help me train?" Kevin smiled and said, "Boss, you are the boss, I promise to complete the things you explained." Later, Tan Wenla came to the Game of Thrones production team, and after Tan Wenla saw Mr. George, he stepped forward to greet him warmly. "Hey, Mr. George, how are you doing?" Tan Wenla said with a smile after hugging George warmly. When George saw Tan Wenla, he always felt very awkward in his heart, but he was not good at showing it. "Hey, I said you boy, after the movie bought out the copyright, everything was handed over to me. The old man, you ran to be happy yourself. It's really not like words. I don't know that I feel sorry for the old man." "Old man, kid, don't you believe in your ability? Besides, you feel so sorry for this work of yours. I believe you will definitely work harder than me to make it. Ha ha ha." George glanced at Tan Wenla and said, "Go, I'll lead you to meet our chief director." Tan Wenla, led by George, came to a conference room. There seems to be casting for this actor here. After Tan Wenla entered the house, he couldn't help but exclaim, wow, so many beautiful women. At this time, George leaned over to Tan Wenla's side and said, hee, do you have any favorites? Let Kevin help you communicate in a moment. Ahem, that, old man, you are a little disrespectful to the old man, Tan Wenla said to George awkwardly. You are now in the time of youth and vigor. It is normal to play, there is no need to avoid the old man. George is very open. He feels that a talented and golden young man like Tan Wenla should be surrounded by a lot of girls. Therefore, in case he messes around in his own crew in the future, it is better to give him a chance to let him pick it first. If he likes it, he can change a channel to hold it, which can also save himself a lot of trouble. Old man, I'm really not the playboy you imagined, although I have the confidence to be a playboy, but I still prefer to be single-minded. Who knows? When Tan Wenla finished saying this, George glanced at him and said, the ghost believes what you say. Tan Wenla didn't bother to explain, shrugged his shoulders and said, yes, you can think as much as you like, anyway, the Qing Wan cleans himself. Later, George took Tan Wenla to the rostrum, and the actors who were performing stopped one after another. Several men sitting on the rostrum got up to greet George when they saw him. Mr. George, you're coming, huh? The middle-aged man at the head shook hands with George warmly. George smiled and said, Brian, let me introduce you. This is the boss of Marvel Studios, Mr. Tan Wenla. Episode 55. Mr. George, you're coming, huh? The middle-aged man at the head shook hands with George warmly. George smiled and said, Brian, let me introduce you. This is the boss of Marvel Studios, Mr. Tan Wenla. Brian was surprised to see the young man behind George, the boss of Marvel Studios. It turned out to be such a young Eastern face. Hello, dear Mr. Tan, it is an honor to be able to direct such an excellent work as a director. Hello, Mr. Brian, please take care of you when you meet for the first time. Hee, Mr. Tan, you are too polite. Come, Mr. Tan, please have a seat. Afterwards, Brian beckoned Tan Wenla and George to sit down, and after that, he explained to the two, Mr. Tan, Mr. George, this is the candidate for the remaining 26 heroines after the selection of Doran. Here is the list at Mr. George's request. They were all from mainland England. George took the list first, glanced at it, and then handed the list to Tan Wenla and said, boy, do you want to take a look first? I won't look at it, I said it all. Everything is decided by you, old man. I am only responsible for paying money and dividends, and I don't care about the rest. Tan Wenla pushed back the list handed in front of him. George was determined to let him see. Oh, how can you say that you are also the boss? The heroine makes such a decision, you should give advice, right? Brian next to George seemed to understand George's intentions, and also persuaded on the side, yes, Mr. Tan, you can help me. Tan Wenla was helpless, the current situation seemed to be unable to escape, he had to nod and say, okay, then I'll take a look. Subsequently, Tan Wenla did not take the list, but walked towards the actresses who sat neatly in a row opposite. These people also seemed to have heard the conversation they just had, knowing that the handsome Oriental youth in front of them is the investor of this drama. So several of the actresses began to throw eyebrows towards Tan Wenla. And the whole Tan Wenla had a cold war and his heart rushed into his heavenly spirit cover, and he was fighting a cold war all over his body, until Tan Wenla walked in front of a woman with a handsome appearance and an elegant and indifferent look. Tan Wenla finally stopped. After he carefully looked at her a few times, he made sure that Tan Wenla took her jade hand and led her to the middle. Then, after taking a step back from the gentleman's appearance, he covered his chest with his right hand, and then, kneeling down on one knee, said, see my honorable queen. The woman seemed to cooperate with him into the scene. Her eyes were handsome and cold, her expression was calm, her head was raised on her back, her eyes were slightly downward, and she said in an authentic British language, please. George on the rostrum looked at the two people in the center of the venue with wide eyes, not to mention Tan Wenla's pompous acting skills, just to say that the heroine's eyes, form and behavior are all perfectly in line with the heroine in his novel. Brian next to George also applauded the woman's short performance. For directors, they seem to care more about an actor's presence and control over the character's personality. Brian believed that the girl must have heard the conversation they had just had. After she knew Tan Wenla's identity, she did not have the slightest stage fright, and still cooperated with Tan Wenla to complete this seemingly simple short performance, which also proved how excellent her mental quality was. Then, Tan Wenla got up and looked at George and Brian and said, how about old man, do you feel satisfied with this? George showed a kind smile and said, not satisfied. After hearing George's words below, the woman couldn't help but chuckle in her heart. Tan Wenla then glared at George and said, what about the ghost? Your happy eyes are gone. George faced Tan Wenla's sarcasm, without the slightest irritation, but beckoned to Tan Wenla, boy, come. Tan Wenla looked at George suspiciously, and saw that he had a bad smile, and felt that he didn't hold back any good farts. George put his arm around Tan Wenla's shoulders and led him out of the conference room, and Brian followed him up. After going out, George asked Tan Wenla once, boy, you answer me seriously, what do you think? What does this girl look like? It's good. George was a little entangled when he heard Tan Wenla's words, it's good target? Tan Wenla saw George staring straight at himself, and after thinking about it, he understood, old fellow, didn't I just tell you, I'm very single-minded, and besides, I'm all married, I won't do anything, let alone do anything with my identity. George still said with some disbelief, are you really married? Really, the certificates are all there, and I will return to Huaxia to accompany my wife in a few days. Then, George pouted and said, I really can't figure it out. What happened to the young people now, stepping into the grave so early? Listening to George's sigh, Tan Wenla rolled his eyes, feeling that this old man was really strange. Probably, it is such a strange brain hole that can write such a masterpiece as Game of Thrones. After leaving Marvel Studios, Tan Wenla came to IMG's headquarters. Later, Max began to give him a rough overview of the recent situation. Boss, XL Records has accepted our £470 million acquisition offer, and the owner of XL Records, Lake, is in contact with the head of our London branch these days. The formalities for the Wenhan Entertainment Company you asked me to handle have been completed, and the company legal person filled in the boss, your wife, Ms. Zhang Xiaohan. The branches of Yanjing and Jiangzhou Wenhan Entertainment Company in Huaxia are under preparation. By the way, boss, I think you can incorporate IMG into Wenhan Entertainment, so that you only need to set up another record production department. Tan Wenla heard Max's almost all the time thinking and thought, well, it's okay, then you can directly merge IMG into the headquarters of Wenhan Entertainment, and in the future, you will be the president of Wenhan Entertainment. Max bowed respectfully to Tan Wenla and said, thank you, boss. Cultivation. It's as if I gave you a raise, so why excited? Max smiled and said, boss, you give me a new car. I've been working for you for a year. Do you like the new car? Max nodded and said, well, just like it, follow me well, and I won't lose you in the future. Episode 56. Los Angeles, in front of a small remote apartment, an expensive less Phantom parked downstairs in the apartment. Generally, such a top luxury car, basically will not appear in such a slum. Tan Wenla and Max got out of the car. Tan Wenla looked up at the small apartment in front of him and said, they, right here? Boss, I'm sure you asked me to find two young people who make games, and they opened a very simple studio in this apartment. After Tan Wenla nodded, he said to Max, okay, let's go up. Max took Tan Wenla to the door of the studio, and Max stepped forward and knocked on the door. Subsequently, the door of the studio was opened by a white youth with eyes. Who are you looking for? Max said, you guys are Onslaught? The young man nodded in confusion. He could see that the dress of the big brother in front of him was a business boss. Hello, I am the CEO of IMG, this is our chairman, we came to discuss cooperation with you. Between Max's words, they are all full of the breath of this high society, and the temperament is dead. When the young man heard this, he exclaimed excitedly, even by Ka, really? Quick, two bosses inside please. Later, after inviting Tan Wenla and Max into the studio, the young man shouted loudly, Meryl, Brandon, Mark, guests are coming, you guys come out quickly. After some shouting from the young man, 3 more youths walked out of the back room. Sheep Knife, are they? The young man named Sheep Dao came up to them and said excitedly, they are here to talk to us about cooperation. Mark, don't you know them? Isn't it a sponsor you pull? The young man named Mark looked at Tan Wenla and Max, and after looking at them, he shook his head and said, I don't know them. It doesn't matter if you don't know, since they take the initiative to come to the door, it means that they are sincerely investing in our game. Let's talk. After listening to the words of the Sheep Knife, Mark immediately turned his head to look at the 2 young men beside him, and after seeing them nodding, Mark stepped forward and said, hello, I am the manager of Onslaught, Mark Cyril. Hello, we are IMG Company, this is the chairman of our company, Mr. Tan Wenla. Mark looked at Tan Wenla, who was not very old, and said with some curiosity, this is your chairman? Tan Wenla smiled and said, why, isn't it like it? Mark said a little embarrassed, sorry, IMG Company I have heard of, is a sports agency, the strength of the company is very strong, in the circle belongs to the top brokerage company, but, I did not expect that the boss of IMG would be so young, some faux pas embarrassed. It doesn't matter, I heard you guys haven't been pulling investment lately? I'm interested in listening to games, let's talk? Yes, Mr. Tan, Mr. Max, please inside. Later, under Mark's introduction, Tan Wenla visited the prototype studio of this future game empire. At this stage, the game League of Legends has already made the framework. However, it is still a semi-finished state, and unfortunately, they do not have the funds in their hands and cannot continue to develop. So, these days, Max is their home. The game work is the person in charge of pulling sponsors who are running around every day. However, none of the companies were optimistic about their prospects. If it weren't for their good lives and encountering penguins, there might not be any League of Legends that swept the world in the future. After Mark gave Tan Wenla a general introduction, Tan Wenla said, well, now let's talk about how much R&D funds do you need, right? Mark was stunned after hearing this. Mr. Tan, do you mean, are you going to invest in our game? Tan Wenla replied crisply, yes. After hearing Tan Wenla's words, the 4 of Mark held each other's hands with some excitement, and the happy mood could not be concealed. Mr. Tan, yes, we intend to sell Onslaught to you as a whole, including our R&D technology. Well, that's the 4 of us. You mean, are you 4 planning to come and work for me? After listening to Mark's thoughts, Tan Wenla felt that this script was wrong. In fact, Mark also has his own plans in his heart. He comes these days, going back and forth to pull sponsorship. He is actually a little tired. He just wanted to quietly engage in R&D and make a game they loved with his brothers, instead of wasting time on running it. He loves games, but he doesn't like finance, and being the manager of the studio himself is also a forced choice. Mr. Tan, you can understand it that way. Tan Wenla, the game you worked so hard to make is going to sell it to me. Are you willing? There is nothing unwilling, we just want to develop games with peace of mind. As for commercial operations, for a few of us, we can be regarded as ignorant. If so, we can be attached to IMG company. I think, with IMG's ability to promote, our games will soon have his own market. Tan Wenla glanced at a few people, and inexplicably felt that he seemed to have picked up a huge bargain. Mark, I naturally have no opinion on your request, so let's talk about the price, right? After hearing this, Mark nodded excitedly, and then, after looking at several friends next to him, he said tentatively to Tan Wenla, Mr. Tan, look for, oh no, $3 million, is that okay? After Max listened, he frowned slightly, feeling that these children had opened their mouths a little. Did they treat Tan Wenla as an unjust head? Tan Wenla on the side smiled and said, yes, in this way, don't pay $3 million, I will give you each $1 million. After that, I will also provide you with the funds you need in the research and development stage. Tomorrow you can report to IMG. When the time comes, you contact Max. I will let him provide you with a new research and development studio, with a new place to stay. Boss, Max just wanted to say something, but who knew that Tan Wenla raised his hand to interrupt him. Well, do you think it's okay? Mark said, Mr. Tan, I really don't know how to express my joy. Oh no, boss, we will definitely finish this game as soon as possible. Episode 57. After Tan Wenla and Max left, Max sat in the car and said to Tan Wenla, boss, the game that has not yet been completed, is it worth so much money? For $1 million, that's enough to buy 4 of these cars. Max, don't underestimate these 4 young people, they will create hundreds of times more benefits for me in the future. Even their small studio can withstand the profitable income of 3 IMGs in the future. Max was a little surprised. Is it that powerful? In the future, you will naturally know. By the way, did you ask about the NBA Golden State Warriors that I asked you to ask? Max said, I asked, the owner of the Golden State Warriors. It seems that he is still hesitating, and he has not given an initial offer originally. I was planning to wait until I received their quotation and think about the boss report. This matter, you follow closer. As long as their boss intends to make a move, you immediately send someone to contact. You don't have to worry about money. Understand, boss, but since you're planning to enter the NBA, why don't you consider investing in other teams? The Golden State Warriors' current results are very poor, and they have not been operating very well for so many years. I've asked other teams, and there are 3 teams that I think are good, and their owners are willing to sell. Tan Wenla did not answer Max's words positively, but smiled slightly. The Golden State Warriors are now at the bottom of the league. If I make him the number 1 team in the league, then what will it be like? Max smiled awkwardly. Boss, you're still awesome. If that's the case, then the market cap of the Warriors will be greatly improved when the time comes. You will definitely make a lot of money, boss. IMG's influence in the future sports world will become more and more influential. Although it will not form an industry monopoly, at least it can occupy half of the country steadily. After listening to Tan Wenla's words, Max was impressed in his heart. Tan Wenla's investment, every step seems to be casual, but it always feels like a link. For Max, Tan Wenla's investment, IMG is his core enterprise. Whether it is the Manchester United club he relies on the most, or the NBA club that may enter the future, or even the movies produced by Marvel, or American dramas, these are inseparable from the behind-the-scenes operation of IMG. Therefore, as long as it is inseparable from IMG, then it means that Tan Wenla cannot do without himself. Tan Wenla, who was sitting in the back seat, suddenly said to Max, Max, your ability is very good, follow me, will you feel aggrieved? Max looked slightly surprised. Boss, why did you suddenly ask that? It's nothing, but I feel that other CEOs are trying to think about how to help the company go public, and you follow me, but every day you can only think about how to help me make money. Boss, when I first met you, to be honest, I didn't realize this. I originally thought that you acquired IMG to integrate and go public, but who knows, you have no intention of going public at all, Max said with a hearty smile. Well, there is really no need to go public. Listing is to raise funds. I am not short of funds at present. After I bought Manchester United, David asked me if I want to list Manchester United on the London Stock Exchange. I thought about this question carefully. Max quietly listened to Tan Wenla's words, which may be a policy he will follow in the future. Powerful capitalists play finance, engage in money, and strive to increase the market value of the company. These are all understandable. After all, they are all to make money. However, there are often some ordinary people in this world, powerful family businesses that cannot be seen with the naked eye, such as the Abu Dhabi Group I told you last time, the family power behind them. I think you should also be clear in your heart, they are all existences that can stir the world's finance, but their core enterprises do not exist in the stock market, and even say that only the following parts of the subsidiaries exist in the stock market, which seem to be a small existence in their eyes. but they are insurmountable mountains in the hearts of ordinary people. Max sat in the passenger seat, quickly sorted out Tan Wenla's words, and then said, "Boss, Abu Dhabi Group, will there really be a business conflict with us?" Tan Wenla shook his head and said, "I haven't offended any giants at present, but it seems that someone from Abu Dhabi Group is deliberately provoking me." East Island. In a small shabby apartment, Zhang Xiaohan held the phone and listened expressionlessly. "Enough, I don't want to listen to you anymore. I've been doing well lately, much better than before. My body is slowly recovering, don't worry about me. In fact, I have figured out a lot during this time. I have no right to interfere in your life. Of course, now that I have grown up, you have no right to interfere in my life. I hope that between us, retain a trace of sanity and respect. Alimony issues, I will consider, but I hope you cannot affect my life in the future, okay?" Saying that, Zhang Xiaohan hung up the phone, threw the phone aside, and squatted where he cried helplessly. At night, Zhang Xiaohan's sister came to visit her, and saw her squatting alone in silence. "Sister, our mother called you again?" Zhang Xiaoxian sat next to her sister and asked with a concerned look. Zhang Xiaohan looked at his sister, bit his lip, and then held his sister and cried. After Zhang Xiaoxian learned the content of the call from her sister's mouth, he puffed out his little face, put his hands on his little man's waist. His face was red, and he kept the root of his neck red. His eyes were wide, and his chest rose and fell violently. "Our mother is too much, even if the operation fee can't be taken out. Why is she embarrassed to ask you for alimony?" Saying that, Zhang Xiaoxian seemed to be unable to calm the anger in his heart, picked up his mobile phone and prepared to call. "Who knows?" Zhang Xiaohan stopped her and said, "After all, she is the one who gave birth to us. No matter how excessive she is also our mother. Forget it. I don't want this to make a big deal in a moment. You help me find a lawyer. Let's sign an agreement with my mother, and I agree to give him alimony, but only if she doesn't disturb my life in the future." Zhang Xiaoxian took his sister's hand and said unbearably, "Sister, you are just too kind." Episode 58. A few days later, a certain master office in Higashima was in the office. Ini looked at the agreement in his hand and roared angrily, "What? 10,000 Chinese coins a month? Is she calling Hanako?" "Ms. Ine, this is a law firm. I hope you are calm. If you have any demands, I can tell your daughter for you." "Okay, Lawyer Wang, in this way, you tell her to pay each of us 100,000 Huaxia coins every month, and I will sign this mediation agreement." Lawyer Wang has been practicing for many years. In fact, it is the first time he has encountered such a strange case. "It's the first time I've met such a strange mother. 100,000 a month in alimony? Do you really think your daughter is a vault? Just take it out?" Ms. Ine, I will convey your meaning, but I hope you will also be clear that my client may not agree to this request of yours. Let's talk about a more reasonable amount of money, okay?" Ini put his hands around his chest and said, "Humph, how much money can she make? I know very well, you are like this. You call her here, I will tell her in person." "I'm sorry, but my client doesn't want to meet with you. If you have any words, I can help you convey them in the original form." At this time, Father Zhang, who was sitting on the side, said, "We gave birth to her and raised her for so many years. Is she such a white-eyed wolf? Don't even see us? You told her that not only did her mother disagree with this money, but I also disagreed." Lawyer Wang was helpless, so he had to sigh and say, "Okay, then I want to communicate with my client, both of you. Please wait a moment." Then, Lawyer Wang went out to make a phone call, and soon after, he walked back again, sat in front of Zhang's father and Zhang's mother and said, "After communicating with my client, she is willing to increase the alimony to 20,000 Chinese dollars per month. Does the second elder think this number can meet your needs?" Father Zhang slapped the table at this time and said, "Impossible, don't even think about it." Ini stood up at this time and said, "I see, we don't need to talk anymore." Subsequently, Zhang's father and Zhang's mother left the law firm. Just after leaving the law firm, Zhang's mother called her son and said with a kind smile, "Son, are you busy now?" "Mom, what's wrong?" "If you have anything, you will say." "Oh, that's so. You see that your sister has been back for a few months, and my mother hasn't seen her yet. My mother knows. My mother did something wrong before. My mother owes your sister. My mother wants to apologize to your sister in person. Can you ask your sister out to see my mother?" Saying that, Ini was on the line, and his voice choked as if he really wanted to sincerely apologize to his daughter, who knew that his son said, "Mom, don't lie to me. I know, you and Dad want to find my sister for alimony. To be honest, this matter, I stand on my sister's side. I can't tell you where my sister is, and you don't bother her anymore if you and your father continue to make trouble like this, let alone lose a daughter. I think you will lose even your son in the future." "Zhang Baiyu, why have you become a white-eyed wolf? We gave birth to you and raised you in exchange for what you do to us." Zhang Baiyu sneered, "Mom, how did you raise us? You and Dad know in your heart, so you said that I was raised by you. It is better to say that I was brought up by my sister. My sister was a teenager. While going to school, she went out to work to earn money to subsidize the family. Yes, later my sister became a big star, but she earned so much money. How much she spent, to be honest, my younger brother may spend more than she spends herself." "Zhang Baiyu, you are a little unconscionable. You are studying abroad. Who pays you living expenses every month? Have you forgotten all this?" I haven't forgotten, you called me, but you also used my sister's money. Okay, Mom, I don't want to argue with you either, so be it, my sister has said, she is willing to pay your alimony. Of course, in the end, I will definitely not let my sister pay all of this money herself, I will help her share a part, so you two elders don't make trouble anymore, okay? After Zhang Baiyu finished speaking, he directly hung up the phone. Ini saw that his son was so desperate, and he was even more angry. Little king ate eggs, little king ate eggs. Are all little bastards I'm not done with them, Ini roared loudly in the street, ignoring the strange eyes of passers-by. After Father Zhang glanced at her, he turned around and left. A few days later, a certain media in Dongdao reported a news scandal: Zhang Mumu, alcoholism, smoking, cheating on a famous producer, etc. For a time, the major media in East Island began to appear similar reports. Later, Zhang's relatives said in an interview with the media, Zhang Mumu is an unfilial daughter, is a bastard, she never gives money to her parents, the family has no way to receive dibao. It is also Zhang's fault, because she makes a lot of money. Subsequently, Zhang Xiaohan's company formally proposed to terminate all of Zhang Xiaohan's endorsement contracts. For a while, this matter began to ferment under the hype of the media. However, things show no signs of continuing. After that, the media seemed to suppress all the negative news of Zhang Xiaohan. No media is paying attention to Zhang Xiaohan, and all previous posts have been taken down. Invisibly, it seems that he has been controlling all this behind the scenes. On this day, Zhang Xiaohan's brother and sister were sitting in the small apartment where she lived. Sister, our mother called me again, I really obeyed, why did we have such a mother? Zhang Baiyu said very angrily. Zhang Xiaohan persuaded his younger brother on the side and said, it's okay, fortunately, this matter has been suppressed, maybe, it's afraid that the impact is not good. Sister, but now that all your endorsements have been stopped, what should you do in the future? Zhang Xiaohan hugged his sister and said, it's okay, my sister is fine. Alas, when this matter is over, my sister will leave here and never come back. Sister, are you really leaving? Don't you keep singing? That's your dream. Zhang Baiyu looked at his sister and felt deeply unworthy for her in his heart. At this time, Zhang Baiyu's mobile phone rang again. He took out his mobile phone and looked. It was his mother again? Zhang Baiyu did not refuse to listen this time, and directly picked up. Hey, Roar, you want to see my sister so much, then you come to see me first. Saying that, Zhang Baiyu hung up the phone, and then got up and walked towards the door. Xiaoyu, why are you going? Come back, Zhang Xiaohan shouted anxiously. Sister, you don't care, I'll go out and come back in a while. Episode 59. Zhang Xiaohan and Zhang Xiaoxian saw their younger brother, and ran out alone, worried that he would do something stupid, so the two sisters also followed. East Island IMG Division. Lin Xuedong, head of IMG East Island Branch. He stood respectfully in front of his desk, lowered his eyebrows and said to the young man opposite, President Tan, I have already done everything you explained. Well, what's going on over there at Fumao Records? Lin Xuedong said, the acquisition procedure has been completed, and now the handover procedures have begun, and Fumao Record will directly acquire Wenhan Entertainment in the mainland. After hearing this, Tan Wenla nodded with satisfaction and said, you did a good job, I'm satisfied. Lin Xuedong said with a smile, Mr. Tan, you have won the award. IMG is the largest sports broadcasting copyright company in East Island, and its influence in East Island is still very large, and officials from various departments will still give our company some thin noodles. At this time, Lin Xuedong's phone suddenly rang. Lin Xuedong glanced down, and then looked up and asked Tan Wenla, President Tan, it's a call from Madam's bodyguard. Tan Wenla waved his hand and signaled him to take it quickly. After Lin Xuedong picked up the phone, his pupils dilated slightly, and his brows locked. After hanging up the phone, Lin Xuedong said to Tan Wenla, President Tan, the people below said that Madam's younger brother is now arguing with their family on the street. Madam also passed. After Tan Wenla listened, his face sank. Let's go over too. Ini, I will tell you today, in the future, you don't have my son, you want alimony, no way. Little beast, what did you say? Ini raised his hand angrily and was about to fan towards Zhang Baiyu, who knew that Zhang Baiyu's eyes were quick, grabbed Ini's arm, and then, directly threw it away. I tell you, you are not qualified to beat me now, nor are you qualified to educate me. Our three brothers and sisters, from now on, will have nothing to do with you anymore. At this time, Yingyi's younger brother, that is, Zhang Baiyu's uncle who had no conscience, scolded and rushed up. Dry antelope grin, even your own mother, you dare to do it? Saying that, Zhang Baiyu's uncle grabbed Zhang Baiyu and prepared to teach him a lesson. Father Zhang looked at the two who were scuffling together, and did not mean to pull a fight at all. At this time, the two sisters Zhang Xiaohan and Zhang Xiaoxian also hurriedly ran over from behind. They hurriedly pulled their younger brother and said, Xiaoyu, calm down. Sister, you let me go, stay by the north, let me do this unconscionable Wanba thing. It is he who spread rumors with the media and slandered you. Dry forest old wood. Zhang Baiyu grabbed his own uncle's collar with great momentum, without the slightest intention of loosening. If it weren't for the fear of accidentally hurting his two sisters, he would have already started at this time. Not far away, Lin Xuedong whispered next to Tan Wenla, Mr. Tan, your brother-in-law, his temper is really hot. Tan Wenla glanced at Lin Xuedong and said, let you call the police, what about people? Lin Xuedong looked left and right, and then said awkwardly, why, it should be right away. Lin, not good, you wait here. Don't come out. Saying that, Tan Wenla hurriedly ran out. After Zhang Baiyu scuffled with his uncle, after Yini saw Zhang Xiaohan coming, his anger instantly surged and said, you white-eyed wolf with no conscience, you are finally willing to come out, right? The old lady worked hard to raise you so big, you said it didn't matter? I'll strangle you. Grandma, what are you doing? Stop pulling. After Zhang Baiyu threw his uncle away, he pushed his mother, who was pulling his sister's hair, away. Yini had an unstable center of gravity, and squatted on the ground. Zhang Xiaohan was also pushed hard by Yini, and his body fell back. At this time, a familiar and warm arm supported her from behind. She suddenly turned around, and that familiar face appeared in front of her. Old you, why are you here? At this time, Zhang Xiaohan's hair was pulled a little messy. Tan Wenla was distressed repeatedly. Her hair said, I'm not coming, you're about to let the bully die. Tan Wenla looked at Zhang Xiaohan and said with a hint of complaint, didn't you say? What do you have to tell me? Will I help you solve it? Zhang Xiaohan bowed his head slightly, pouted a little aggrieved, and said with a small mouth, also, it's nothing, today is an accident, Xiaoyu, he is too impulsive. At this time, Zhang Xiaoxian looked at Tan Wenla blankly on the side, thinking in his heart, who is this person? Does he know my sister? However, his appearance is so gentle. Sister, who is he? Zhang Baiyu called directly at this time. He's my friend. Zhang Xiaohan explained perfunctorily. Zhang Baiyu glanced at Tan Wenla, feeling that he didn't seem to have seen him. Listening to his tone of voice, he didn't look like a Dondoist. When did his sister meet such a friend? However, Zhang Baiyu saw that he had just supported his sister from behind, and he was still more grateful in his heart. Brother, thank you just for holding my sister. Saying that, Zhang Baiyu dragged his sister from Tan Wenla's side to his side, looking at him very vigilantly. Tan Wenla looked at his brother-in-law and shook his head a little speechlessly. Hey, this little brother, even asked you to roar. What is your relationship with the puppet girl? At this time, Father Zhang, who had never spoken, looked at Tan Wenla and asked. Tan Wenla glanced at Zhang Xiaohan and saw that she shook her head slightly to herself. After Tan Wenla sighed secretly in his heart, he looked up and said to Father Zhang, the wind is blowing a pool of spring water, what is the matter? Father Zhang didn't seem to understand what Tan Wenla said, and said impatiently, little brother, what are you talking about? It's good to get rid of Chinese. Tan Wenla looked at Father Zhang and said lightly, Guan, you, fart, matter, poof. After Zhang Baiyu heard Tan Wenla's words on the side, he couldn't help but laugh directly for a while. The sisters Zhang Xiaohan and Zhang Xiaoxian beside him also hid their faces and smiled at the same time. Father Zhang couldn't help it at this time, pointed at Tan Wenla and began to scold. In an authentic Dongdao dialect, Tan Wenla didn't seem to hear a word. Yini sat on the ground and cried and shouted, there is no heavenly reason. Giving birth to children does not provide for the elderly. Father Zhang stood there and Balabala didn't know what he was scolding. Tan Wenla looked at the scene in front of him. He really felt aggrieved for his daughter-in-law and children. What do such parents want them for? Coincidentally, at this time, the police also came and directly controlled the people on both sides and brought both sides into the police station. Episode 60. In the police car, Zhang Xiaohan sat next to Tan Wenla and said, I'm sorry to burden you. Tan Wenla looked at Zhang Xiaohan with an evil smile and said, when did you be so polite with me? Zhang Xiaohan subconsciously pushed Tan Wenla, and then, gave Tan Wenla a look, indicating that his own sister was still sitting next to him. At this time, Zhang Xiaoxian was like a transparent person, staring out the car window alone. After Tan Wenla glanced at her, he smiled and stopped talking. Once at the police station, the police took them to an interrogation room and questioned them separately. When the police in Dongdao saw Tan Wenla's documents, they smiled dismissively. Yo, you are still from the mainland? What's wrong? What's the problem? Tan Wenla asked. It's nothing, explain it, why beat someone? The policeman who interrogated Tan Wenla asked directly. Tan Wenla was a little puzzled after hearing this. I hit someone? Have you seen me hit someone? Bang. At this time, another person who participated in the interrogation slapped the table heavily and said, honestly, don't think that if you are a mainlander, you can be lawless here. Tan Wenla looked at the attitude of the two interrogators in front of him, and he could figure out what he could understand with a little thought. These two guys, what benefits should they receive, right? I don't know how the Zhang Xiaohan sisters on the other side are doing now. Bang bang bang. Hey, talk to you dumb? Can't understand Chinese? The corners of Tan Wenla's mouth twitched slightly. You still know that you speak Chinese? An interrogator stood up angrily and pointed at Tan Wenla. At this time, the colleague next to him grabbed him and signaled that he wanted to sit down. Next, the two asked Tan Wenla several questions in a row, and Tan Wenla was still silent. 10 minutes later, the interrogation room was suddenly opened. At this time, their chief walked in from outside, looked at Tan Wenla, who was being interrogated, and said with a smile on his face, are you Mr. Tan? Tan Wenla looked at the middle-aged uncle in front of him and nodded. Mr. Tan, I'm sorry, it's all a misunderstanding, please come out with me. At this time, the two interrogators were a little dumbfounded. What is the situation? Why is their bureau chief so polite to a mainlander? Could it be that this person has a background? With the two interrogators stunned, their chief had already invited Tan Wenla out of the interrogation room. Mr. Tan, we have already learned about what happened through the camera. And as for the nuisance of Ini and others to Ms. Zhang Xiaohan, we will definitely deal with it seriously. Your last name? Don't have your surname Zhang Jianpu, it's the head of the precinct. Zhang Bureau, I thought I would be beaten into a trick here with you today. I'm curious, when did I start beating someone? Zhang Jianpu was also stunned when he heard Tan Wenla's words. This who said this? Zhang Bureau, thank you for today's matter, but you are protecting the safety of people's personal and property, and I hope that there will be no such people in your team. Mr. Tan, I will definitely deal with this matter seriously, rest assured. Tan Wenla walked out of the police station under the escort of Zhang Jianpu. Lin Xuedong was standing in front of the police station waiting at this time, and when he saw Tan Wenla, he hurriedly stepped forward and said, President Tan, are you okay? I'm okay, but I hope my friend is okay. After Tan Wenla's words, Lin Xuedong looked at Zhang Jianpu on the side and said, Old Zhang, where are the people? Come out right away, that, I'm going to see. With that, Zhang Jianpu walked back to the police station. After Tan Wenla whispered a few words to Lin Xuedong said, okay, Mr. Tan, I'll do it. With that, Lin Xuedong left. Tan Wenla waited alone at the door of the police station, and within a few minutes, Zhang Xiaohan's three brothers came out. Zhang Xiaohan came to Tan Wenla and asked with concern, well, they didn't embarrass you, did they? Tan Wenla smiled and said, no, I've already come out, isn't this waiting for you? At this time, Zhang Baiyu stepped forward and said, buddy, thank you today, go, buddy please eat. Xiaoyu, let's go home and eat. At this time, Zhang Xiaohan pulled Zhang Baiyu and said, sister, if it's not convenient for you to go out, go back first, I'll accompany him to eat with my second sister. At that time, I'll let my second sister bring you some food back. Zhang Baiyu dragged Tan Wenla with a big grin and was about to leave. Tan Wenla was a little speechless for this brother-in-law in front of him. Tan Wenla looked at Zhang Xiaohan, who knows. Zhang Xiaohan smiled at him and said, then you guys eat happily, hee hee. Tan Wen was happy to see that Zhang Xiaohan agreed, and he was not good at saying anything, so he had to follow his brother-in-law and leave. Zhang Baiyu had a relatively big personality, and pulled Tan Wenla directly to a food stall. Dude, do it boss, a la carte. Seeing this, Tan Wenla smiled and said, you often come here? Zhang Baiyu said, that's not to be honest, it has been open here for many years, and in the past, it was all our three brothers and sisters who came together, but later, my sister became a big star, and she rarely came out to eat with us. Subsequently, Zhang Baiyu ordered a few specialties and asked for 2 bottles of wine. At this time, Tan Wenla suddenly said, I can't drink. What? Big man don't drink? Zhang Baiyu's voice was loud, and many people at the adjacent table cast doubtful glances at them. Tan Wenla felt a little embarrassed and said, it's really not. I really haven't drunk alcohol when I am so big. At this time, Zhang Baiyu took the wine bottle and came to Tan Wenla, staring at Tan Wenla imposingly. Boy, I tell you, I don't care what you do. If you want to chase my sister, you must pass my level. If you are a man, today's wine, you look at it. Saying that, Zhang Baiyu banged and put the wine bottle on the table. Seeing this, Tan Wenla knew that he couldn't avoid this level today, so he unscrewed the cap of the wine bottle and began to pour himself wine. Zhang Baiyu saw Tan Wenla start to pour wine, only then sat down, put one hand on Tan Wenla's shoulder and said, I tell you brother, as long as you can drink me down, where is my sister, I will help you get it. Zhang Baiyu said to Tan Wenla with confidence. At this time, Zhang Xiaoxian pulled Zhang Baiyu and said, brother, don't give your eldest sister a blind promise. Second sister, didn't you see how the two of them just met today? Saying this, Zhang Baiyu leaned into Zhang Xiaoxuan's ear and whispered, let me tell you, there must be something wrong with the two of them.